Hey groovy googlers, welcome to today's episode of Why Come No One Told Me That, which is my series where I do little in-depth videos on the various stages of makeup. We are picking up today with under-eye concealing. We have already covered everything from basic skincare to prep to picking a foundation base matching, several videos on that, and then applying foundation and concealing acne. So we are now at the point of figuring out what to do about these bad boys under your eyeballs, your socket scrotums, if you will. Trademark Caitlin Galloway 2018. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I've already prepped my face and applied my foundation as described in the earlier installments of this Why Come No One Told Me That series, and now I'm ready to apply some under eye concealer. I personally like to apply under eye concealer after foundation because I find that I use a little less product because my foundation has already eliminated some of the dark circles that I want to conceal, and it also, when I want to be using my under eye concealer as a little bit of a highlight, it's nice to do that as kind of like the last step and blend it in because again, I think I use less product as opposed to... What do you want, honey? As opposed to using it as a highlight underneath and then putting foundation on top, I just feel like it's unnecessary. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Applying under eye concealer, I feel like is kind of on a spectrum. So at the beginning of the spectrum, you can do the most minimal approach, which is just to try to counterbalance the natural dark circles that occur under almost everybody's eyeballs. And then you can go all the way from that to kind of dramatic highlighting while under eye concealing at the same time. And the principles behind any way that you approach under eye concealing are the same. It really is just like what level you want to take it to. So first of all, a note about under eye darkness. Everybody has it. If you have dark circles under your eyes, it just means that you are a human with a face and eyeballs. It's really not a big deal. One of the most common comments that I get when I do people's makeup is, oh, I know my dark circles are so bad. And I'm like, well, actually, no. In most cases, it's just like, that's part of having a face. There's a hole here in your skull and it makes a shadow. Also, the skin in that area is some of the thinnest on your face, and that's a good thing. We have a little bit of extra skin in that area. Yay! We have a little bit of extra skin in that area, and it's also very thin, and that's so that we can do crazy stuff.
I love you and I like you.
I love you and I like you too. I don't tell him to say that, he just started saying it, and it's so cute. Anyway, we have thin and extra skin under our eyes so that we can do like this, which is important. I would rather be able to look around at my surroundings and have a little bit of tricky to apply makeup on top of skin, and it's okay. So basically my point is, understand that this is an area of the face that is a little bit trickier to work with because everybody knows under eye concealer tends to crease, and it's also can look very cakey very easily, and that's just the nature of being able to look around and have eyes. I've given you guys sort of like an anti-pep talk a few times where I've basically just encouraged people to lower their expectations because I think marketing has been a little bit detrimental in the sense that there's all these products out there that are like crease proof, 24-hour wear, and it's like, that does not exist, or every makeup artist in the world would be using it because we're on set for like 14 to 18 million hours a day so that we can touch up makeup because it doesn't last perfectly all day, and this is especially true with any kind of under eye products because, as I've now mentioned like 5 times, there are creases built into that region and the skin is thin, and so it kind of just needs maintenance. My point is, throughout the day, occasionally you might have to do one of these and just kind of blot it out. I will give you tips, obviously, for the most success because you can have concealers that aren't very good or application techniques that should be adjusted and then it's worse, but just know that it's normal to have under eye circles. No one notices them as much as you do, and also it's normal to have to touch it up and for it to wear down a little bit after a few hours. So now that we have collectively decided to reach for achievable goals, let's talk about how to apply it. I would always personally rather see a little bit of an imperfection than caked on or too much makeup, and that's a preference thing. But my goal is always going to be to put as little makeup on the face as possible with the most impact, especially with complexion makeup. Obviously, it's one thing to use dramatic eyeshadow and lashes or lip colors, but skin, I usually want to look fairly natural and not be distracting. I think the best way to do that is to use a formula that has a really lightweight texture, but still full coverage. I'm always looking to hear recommendations for different under eye concealers. My personal favorite is the Urban Decay Naked Concealer, so that's what I'm going to be using. I think that they did a good job of finding kind of that happy medium between good coverage but also very thin formula. A thin formula is important for areas of the face with thin skin because it's not going to weigh your skin down as much as a thicker product would. For color selection, I like to use a product that's 1 to 2 shades lighter than the rest of the face. 2 shades is extreme in my opinion, and that's if I'm like really doing a very sculpted highlighting and contouring look, which I'm not against. It's going to be a little bit more glam and you're gonna have to blend more. So it's a little bit safer, especially if you're starting out, to use something that's closer to your skin tone, is maybe like a half a shade or 1 shade lighter. Under eye concealing is one of the only areas of makeup where I feel like color correcting can actually be a really helpful and necessary tool. It's not always necessary, but it is sometimes very, very helpful. If you do have genuinely very, very dark circles, then a little bit of color correcting can help you not have to use as much product, because you can get coverage and you can adjust the color of what's naturally on your face through physical coverage, as in the amount of pigment that is in a product that is covering up physically the color that's on your skin that you're trying to cover, or through counterbalancing color. And that's when you neutralize discoloration with the actual color of the pigment. So if you're in a situation where you have really, really dark circles, then you can get a certain amount of coverage from the amount of pigment that's in a product, but you can also make it so you don't have to put as much on by using a color that's going to neutralize the color of your dark circles. What that means in action, because that might have just all sounded like gibberish, is that dark circles tend to be made up of cool colors. They're kind of a mix of like purple and blue and green. And so the opposite of that for light skin is going to be like a peachy, orangey pink tone, a very warm color. And then as you get into darker skin tones, it's going to be a more saturated version of that, so just like a rich orangey red. So there are a couple ways that you can incorporate that. If you have dark circles that you really have difficulty covering, then it might be worth it to look into concealers that for light skin have kind of a peachy undertone, and for darker skin have an orangey red undertone. You can either buy a concealer that already has color correcting properties built into it, or you can get an adjuster and then mix it in yourself. For example, this is a Ben Nye adjuster that I use, and I'll mix little bits of this into a concealer to get the perfect amount of color correction when somebody's dark circles are a little bit more intense than average. But if your dark circles aren't super intense, then you don't really even need to worry about it. So placement, if you want to do just the most natural minimalist approach, then all you need to do is apply a little bit of concealer in the areas where you actually have darkness. And if you can't really tell where that is, 1, congratulations. And 2, a helpful exercise that you can do is tilt your chin down in the mirror, and that's just going to enhance whatever shadows you have and make it very apparent where your darkness is. So I'm going to go ahead and do this eye, and then on this one I'm going to do kind of like the other somewhat extreme end of the spectrum. When it comes to application tools, all that really matters is that it is an appropriate size for how much concealer you want to apply. So for example, in this case, I'm just trying to put the concealer right where I have darkness because I don't want to put a lot of makeup on. I want it to be quick and I just want to counterbalance my natural darkness. And so in that case, I would either use a smallish brush, or I can just use my finger, which is what I usually use out of laziness. And I also find that the warmth from my fingers really helps to meld the product into my skin. So I'm going to use my ring finger, and I'm just going to touch a little bit of concealer into right in here. I can see where I've got darkness. I've also got a little bit in here. And a little bit out here. Now I'm going to take my beauty blender. I'm just going to tap and press it to blend it. I like to tap and press because I don't want to swipe and remove the product that I've put on so far. And then the last little thing that I like to do to sort of prolong my need for touch-ups is I take the point of my beauty blender, or just my finger sometimes, and I go right where I have the natural creases of my under eye. Usually people have a couple more pronounced creases just in their skin right there. And I just kind of wipe out the excess concealer from that area, and that buys me a little bit more time before I start getting creasing that I need to touch up throughout the day. So that's the minimalist approach. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my concealer to also highlight my facial structure a little bit on this side.
That's a mole.
Yeah, it's a mole.
this auto move. This auto moves on the neck.
On my neck. I have moles on my neck.
Right here.
Yeah, I have a lot of moles.
You have a mole right here.
Yeah.
That's a big mole.
It's a big mole.
Huh?
Yes, it is. So there's obviously a lot of tutorials and photos on social media showing kind of like more dramatic highlighting and contouring.
Shirt's wet.
Your shirt's wet? That's okay. Showing more dramatic highlighting and contouring techniques. And I just wanted to make a note about that. Thank you. Sometimes the placement looks like, you know, they've done all these cool lines or very specific looking shapes and triangles, and that looks nice and is fine for like your photos of the process of putting concealer on. But I just wanted to mention that it's not necessary to like have your placement really precise and like shaped any certain way. Just in case that was intimidating you, seeing those pictures, like with Kim Kardashian's makeup artist and stuff, it looks really cool, but it's not necessary. All that really matters is that you're applying concealer that's a little bit lighter than your skin tone, and you're just trying to enhance this part of your face and your cheekbones. So I'm going to apply it obviously where I have my dark circles, and then I'm just going to have it extend down onto my apple of my cheek a little bit, and then I'm just going to carry it up along my cheekbone. The good news is when it comes to finding your placement, you can actually feel with your finger your zygomatic bone or your cheekbone. And so it's really easy to be able to just touch and feel and go, okay, well right here I can feel kind of like the ball of my cheek, and then I can feel my cheekbone kind of extending up like this, and then just apply it right underneath your temple. And I'm just tapping it in with my finger. And then I'm going to use my beauty blender to press it in.
This way. Yes.
And that's how I would do that. If I wanted this to be more intense and dramatic, then I would just use a concealer that's a little bit lighter than this one, because you guys have probably picked up on my channel, but I tend to stick more to the natural side of things. But that doesn't mean that I never do more dramatic, and if I wanted to do that, then I would lighten it a little bit more. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is setting your under eye concealer. Obviously, baking is a really big trend, and it actually originates from drag makeup, which is true of a lot of trends right now. And there is a time and a place for it, and I think that that's when you're applying a lot of makeup and you have very minimal texture on your face. So if you have younger skin, or you're just blessed and you don't have a lot of creasing or texture, in those situations it does help to prolong before you start creasing, or if you have really oily skin. But other than that, I don't find it necessary, and I really just try to put as little product in the area as possible, especially powder that's going to dry things out, just make them look cakier. So you will buy yourself some time with touch-ups, especially if you've got oily skin. But just know that the more product you put and the drier you make that area, the more cakey it's going to look. I personally almost never apply powder underneath the eyes, but when I do drag makeup, or when I'm working on someone who's very little texture but oilier skin, then I might do that. But it's just kind of like whatever works for you. There's no wrong option in this particular case. All right, I'm gonna finish up the rest of my makeup real quick.
No, you sit behind me.
What?
Yes.
I can't sit behind you. You've gotta sit behind me. Are you gonna teach him how to do makeup?
Yes.
Yes. What are you gonna say? How do you do makeup? You need to use this one.
I will open it.
You need to open it first. That is an important first step.
I did it!
You did it.
I want it on me.
Yeah. Were you swatching some makeup at Sephora today?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to wash my hand.
All right, as always, I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have questions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video if you, in fact, liked this video, and follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at Kiki Makeup, or else, I was gonna say that a pterodactyl will breathe fire on you, but that doesn't make any sense, and it's like really kind of violent.
I want more.
You want some more? Do you want some more?
I want some more.
Do you want some more?
I want some more.
Brownie points if any of you guys know what that's from.
I want some more.
Do you want some more?
Yes.
Alright, I will see you guys in a couple of days. Goodbye.